I'm just going to run through this, just a couple of slides very quickly, and then I'm going to show you some bits of the AWS dashboard that actually allow you to build that out and how we can enable conversations. So everything that I've shown you there is built through the AWS console, and it's using a combination of services, both Lex and using Connect as well, which is the telephony part. I'm going to give you an overview of the platform, short demonstration, open up for questions, and then we can talk about next steps, give you my contact details, things like that. So Jadu very much looks at artificial intelligence as being very present here and now. And there's always a lot of talk around channel shift, and that's a phrase that most of us will be familiar with and we've heard 101 times previously. Now, we strongly believe that channel shift is actually a technology shift. Your citizens and your customers have already decided which channel they want to interact with the council on. So how can we bring technology into those channels to serve those customers better, to provide efficiencies, and to free up your staff's time as well, which is really important. Amazon Lex, it's a service for building conversational interfaces, which you can deploy on multiple different channels. You build it once and you can deploy it in multiple different places. Everything is relatively low code. To do some of the more technical pieces, it does require some development experience. And certainly Lex does require the ability to look at things mathematically to solve problems as well, which I will go into in just one moment. Contextual training data. If you're a Jadu CXM user, the ability to raise cases in Jadu CXM, it also has the benefit of using the data that's in CXM to learn, and as it's contextual data. So the benefit of that is that it's aware of certain dialects, demographics, local terms. Most of us have got a road or a place or a park near us that lots of people will have an unofficial name for, but it's not the actual name of the place. The benefit of using the data that's in CXM already means that you can teach it from the information that you've got already. Technology shift, bringing it into channels that users are familiar with and have access to. And interestingly, I was having a conversation with a local authority about a month ago, and one of the key parts that I hadn't thought of, but is very important to Jadu, is accessibility. And they greatly believe that actually by using artificial intelligence, it can improve accessibility, particularly if people are going to be using their own devices or things like WhatsApp to engage with the council. They've already got a number of accessibility settings on your phones. All of us have them. That can actually enable better conversations and more accessible conversations for your customers. There is some key principles around that technology shift in artificial intelligence, though, and these are things which I drill into people and I say again, again, and again, and again. And you need to understand these before you start undertaking any artificial intelligence. First of all, you are not replacing people with robots. That is not the case whatsoever. In fact, actually, your people have great value to add to those robots because they understand the customer journey better than anyone else. What you are doing is taking away the mundane tasks from your highly skilled customer service agents that you have spent a fortune training. You are giving them better job satisfaction in what they're doing because they're not having to deal with an antisocial behavior report of dog fouling, or sort out somebody's missed bin, or book a tip trip appointment. These are small, mundane tasks that eat up their time and actually lessen the experience for your customers as well, because they get frustrated that they have to speak to somebody, that they have to hold, and often calls are abandoned. So rather than calls getting abandoned, the people that need help the most actually get through to a customer service agent and are able to get through to the help that they need. You have to understand that you want to offer assistance through technology. The technology is there to answer citizens quickly and accurately. And as I've said in point one, you're lessening the burden for your staff. There's not hundreds of calls sat in a queue. They are answering the calls where people need the help the most. The Lex bot allows to feed back into Jadu CXM from multiple channels. It's one bot, and it will allow you to deliver back in via phone, email, SMS, WhatsApp, through a web chat, chatbot, and Facebook Messenger. All of these are options that are out of the box with AWS. Jadu does a lot of work, and this is really where we see our future direction. So the Lex bot I'm talking to you about today, as well as the chatbot widget, which I'm going to be showing you. And then we're working on AI and RPA integrations like Blue Prism for digital workers. And I understand some of you that joined yesterday got to see some RPA solutions. And then for local authorities that are Microsoft users, if you are E3 or above, then you now have Power Automate, and you have unattended RPA as part of your Power Automate solution, which I'd be happy to talk to you about as well. So how you can actually get your technology working for you and performing better. But let's have a look at the actual platform. And let's go through a couple of different scenarios and what we can use it for. And I'll take you through the back end of how we actually set things up, because the short video that we played shows you raising cases. So I don't want to dwell too much on that today. So there's a number of different parts to the AWS console. Connect is one part of it, and Lex is another, where we can build out our bots. Now, our bots can have multiple intents, and it really is a case of, right, well, if we're committed to rolling out our AI, then what we need to do is decide on where we're going to start, and doing it service by service. I strongly believe that one of the reasons that local authorities haven't had the same uptake of artificial intelligence as we've seen with private companies, whether that's Sky, lots of us have Sky or Virgin TV. If you phone that, you're speaking to an artificial intelligence bot. However, for Sky, it's really easy. Their bot only needs to understand three things: TV, broadband, and telephone. It doesn't need to understand any more than that. It can be quite happy with just those three things. When you're a local authority and you've got 300 odd processes, building an artificial intelligence bot to deal with them can seem slightly overwhelming. And I completely understand that. Trying to teach at potholes was a nightmare, and that's how I lost my hair, because trying to come up with 10,000 descriptions of a pothole was rather challenging. So we're going to make a phone call first of all. And the first part of this phone call, I'm going to be hanging up, but it's actually just to demonstrate that some things aren't best dealt with by artificial intelligence.
Hello, Dave. Welcome to the Jadu Council. How can I help?
Make a complaint.
This query is better handled by a human. Let me transfer you to one of my colleagues.
So we're able to do that through a variety of means. First of all, we have a complaint intent, and the bot understands the word complaint, complaint about council, complaint about service, or make a complaint. It will understand versions of those as well. I'm complaining. It's not prescriptive that it only understands those four things. But what it's done is gone, right, well, I understand what that intent with is, and actually I'm not going to try and deal with that at all, because it's far better for a human being to be dealing with that. And that is entirely correct. It is not a case of all things can be dealt with by a bot. And certainly a complaint is a more personal issue and a more contentious issue, so has to be dealt with by a human being. We can choose the routing of that call through our contact flow designer as part of Amazon Connect. And we can carry out multiple Lambda functions. What we are doing by carrying out the Lambda functions is running simple scripts, and that's to go and check the contact attributes with the phone number against the record in CXM. It's gone and checked my phone number against the record in CXM, found out that my name is Dave, and then delivered it back that, hello, Dave, how can I help you today? We can then add that in at other parts of the conversation, should we wish to. So if I wanted to phone it and give it an intent that it can handle, such as missed bins, it can go and add in my name again, adding in that level of personalization that's really important.
Hello, Dave. Welcome to the To-Do Council. How can I help?
You haven't collected my bin.
Sorry to hear that, Dave. Let's get this sorted for you. Firstly, was your bin out before 8 a.m.?
Yes.
What is the first part of your postcode?
LE19.
What is the second part of your postcode?
3ZD.
What is your house number?
2.
Thank you. I have raised a case for one of our team here at Council to...
So it's raised a case for a missed bin, as expected. And if I go to our case list in CXM, our view that we would have as our customer service or our people that are looking after the data, we can see that there's a missed bin case at the top there, and it's collected the details of that. I can expand that and I can ask more questions. I could ask what type of bin was missed, and we can have it understand that actually if you say a green bin, it means code 1234, and pass that information over to CXM rather than passing over a description of green bin. It's quite easy to do that. One of the challenges that we had here, and this is indeed the mathematical piece that I was speaking about, was dealing with the problem of a prefix, a postcode. Now, the problem of a postcode is rather complex, and it needs to be looked at mathematically. And this is where, as with all things artificial intelligence, mathematics can significantly help in your use of it. Sometimes restricting the bot to its understanding is far better than leaving it as an open model. If we break down postcodes and we look at the number of possible postcodes across the UK, it's around 14 million. That's a bit too difficult for a bot to understand, and it would allow us to enter complete and utter rubbish as well. We can break that down mathematically, and we can go mathematically, there's 7,287 possibilities for a postcode prefix. For a suffix, there's 4,787 possible mathematical combinations of those letters and numbers. And if we break it down mathematically, we can restrict the bot to those slots. That sits within Amazon's limits of 10,000 values per slot. So it can understand it, and it always accurately collects those postcodes. These are published on the Jadu library and available to download, and you can import a slot into your own AWS instance really quick, really easy. Use of the bot across multiple channels is enabled simply through callback URLs and providing tokens. It's just not going away. It will, though, I promise. Yeah. We'll wait. We'll come back to that. things like Facebook for developers, we're able to simply just use webhooks to be able to communicate between Lex and your Facebook Messenger. That's really easy to do. It's simply putting in a callback URL and a token that you generate, and you're able to have the two communicate instantly. Of course, what we can do is we can deploy chatbots upon your website, and we can do that as a widget, and it provides a Jadu assistant. We could report a case of dog fouling, for example. Did it take place on public or private land? Taking me through a series of questions that it needs to know the answers for so it can raise a case. It was an adorable dog. It was lovely and fluffy, like my dog. And which park did it occur on? So let's go with Victoria Park, which is just down the road from me. And it's gone and raised a case of antisocial behaviour for the council to investigate. And it's provided me with a link as well to that case. I, as a citizen, can go in and see the timeline now as a customer view of it, but I can see that there is something being done about it, that it was on public land, the adorable description. I haven't spoken to the owner and where it actually was. Cutting down communication with the council and unnecessary contact through phone calls because I've already got that information that was required. This is things that artificial intelligence is able to do really quickly, very easily, and actually just take away the burden from council staff. Sorry, I've got a whole load of Zoom controls at the bottom. I'm just going to WhatsApp. Indeed, one of the channels that we can deploy through use of Twilio is deploying it to SMS and to WhatsApp. This is genuinely my own WhatsApp. I've got my partner at the top there, and my friends and my mum and all sorts of people in the list there. So I'll hide the conversations because you really don't want to see all the stuff I'm talking about. But we can go and have a conversation with our bot through WhatsApp. The second stage of this is uploading of images to the council via WhatsApp, which I might try in a second, but I break it quite often. We want your bot to do more stuff, and please let me speak to someone else other than Dave, because it's the poor bot only gets to speak to me. It doesn't get anybody else. And I'll pop in my email address there. Feel free to email me if anybody's got any questions. Email address on screen. And a case has now been raised for making a suggestion. And again, we've been provided with a reference to it. We've been provided with a link to the case timeline, and we can go and see what's actually happening with that. If we go to our case list, it'll appear at the top. So our suggestion box, customer experience has been assigned to the case. That's part of our standard workflow. The suggestion is there, and the citizen email is there. Of course, we can expand slots and we can make up multiple slots. The key part of this is that we need to look at is that to create these intents and slots within Amazon, it's not a case of that we need to create whole new case types or we need to create a whole new set of questions. Not at all. The integration already exists within CXM. We can simply go to intents, where we'll have a number of different cases set up already. Things like dog fouling, misbin, suggestion that we've looked at today. I've also taught about builders materials, barking dogs, fixed penalty notices, so it can actually redirect to a payment or reporting. But we can go and look at our valid case forms, and we could choose any of the case types that exist already within your Jadu system. If we're picking any of the case types at all, we can choose whether we're going to create a custom slot, or because Amazon is pretty good at having quite a lot of slots which they've already taught Lex to understand. It's the same technology that powers the Echo speakers, so they understand a lot of these things already. We can go and just use the Amazon predefined slots. We can create the intent, and that will go and set that intent up within a couple of minutes on the Amazon dashboard, where we can then go and personalize the prompts to make them friendlier for customers to be able to understand. And it will go and build that away, and then it will give us a notification of it being ready once it's all constructed and it's built out those slots across at AWS. It simply appears within our list of intent on the side here. It can take a couple of minutes to do, but the point is that you're not having to go and create intents and think through customer journeys again. It's just simply using the customer journeys that you've already got and that you've already designed, and the information that you already know that you need to be able to help your citizens and customers. It really does just enable an extra channel for people to be able to speak to you in. Hopefully that gives you a good overview of the capability of AWS Lex and using Connect, entirely driven by Jadu CXM, sitting at the middle of it almost as a spider web, and just pulling in information from various different sources and feeding it back in to raise cases to improve customer experience. The different phases, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen just so I can talk. The different phases that that I'm working on at the moment. So I'm currently working on image uploads. Now, image uploads will allow an image to be sent to the council via WhatsApp. Part of the AWS availability is an element called recognition. Recognition can be used to identify objects and assign values to those objects. So you can send a picture of fly tipping via WhatsApp to the council. It pulls the coordinates, GPS coordinates out of the picture, so it knows exactly where it is. And it can look at the picture and go, there's a fridge, 10 bin bags, and a sofa. I'm going to estimate the weight is approximately 200 kilos, and it can pass that information through to the case. It is very buggy at the moment, so otherwise I would have shown it to you today, but hopefully within the next couple of weeks I'll have that up and running, and we'll certainly be posting out a video once it is. That's other areas that we're working on. Beyond that, further work with email, improving the confidence threshold so the bot can reply to email, which is currently set at 90%. If it's confident in its reply and it believes that that reply is 90% accurate or greater, then it will send that reply. Otherwise, it simply flags possible replies for a customer service agent to review, pick the one that's most appropriate, and that then gets sent. Every time that happens, the bot does learn. It learns iteratively, and it improves its service as it goes along. Thank you very much for my time today. I know I've ran over time, so I do apologise, Nick. I tend to talk maybe a bit too much upon occasion, but welcome any questions.
I don't think there's ever any problems sort of going over time when you're providing interesting information that people are going to learn from, David. I think, you know, when you babble on like I do about all sorts of nonsense, then you can be accused of wasting time. So that's really, it's interesting to get under the bonnet without going into heavy duty sort of techie stuff, but get under the bonnet of this sort of stuff. Demystifies it somewhat, because obviously I think, you know, you mentioned AI to anyone, and I don't know what it's like necessarily working within a local authority, but I'm just thinking mentioning AI just to the man in the street and or the woman in the street or any other a person in the street, and automatically people think of Terminator and they think of all sorts of things, things taking over the world and, like you say, replacing humans. But like you've said, this is a great opportunity to provide people with the support to then deal with stuff that is more high impact, that's more sort of beneficial to the employee and make sort of work more rewarding to them. But again, I'm doing just what I said I would do, which is babble on. And so what I'm going to do is let's I tell you what, let's unmute and let's who's got questions? There must be questions for Dave around either the AI bot that he's working with, which is obviously the Mike Ward and Greg Davison. So Mike, you are muted first, so you are first up.
Oh, thanks, Nick. I was just wondering, Dave, presumably when you're using Lex, does the citizen need to link their Amazon account with their local authority account in some way?
No.
Okay.
So there's various routes that you can take through it. Now, if you wanted to go full on and have Echo be able to do stuff in the local authority, you can build a skill to be able to do that. It's not particularly difficult to do. It does require developer input to do that. What I'm showing you today is entirely done by the local authority and just simply building the bot and then deploying it to the channels that you want it to interact on. I would say that with all things artificial intelligence, just be careful about the channels that you choose, because it is a case of the Sky example is a classic one. Teaching it 3 things is fine. Teaching it 300 is overwhelming, and it needs to be iterative. So actually choosing which service area you're going to do first of all is really important, and then restricting it almost to that service area so other people aren't phoning it up and it going, right, well, I can't help with that, and people getting frustrated, and then there's less buy-in to the actual use of that automation. So, I mean, in terms of, Maurice had a question about cost savings worked out. The authority that I was referencing, that's a huge problem for them. Tip trip appointments, they take around 2,500 calls a month for tip trip appointments. They have an outsourced call center so for booking a tip trip appointment, they get charged £4.50. The documentation from Lex in terms of raising a case, the maximum cost that it is 9.2 pence. But actually, the more you use it, the lower the cost becomes per case on a per case basis. So you can actually be below a penny, believe it or not, raising a case if you're using it an awful lot. But you would need to get to huge volumes to be able to get there. But do pick your service area carefully. And look for areas that, and as with the authority I was referencing, they spoke to their customer service agents and they said, what do you get really frustrated with taking calls for? And they said tip trip appointments. They said it's really frustrating because it takes us 5 minutes to find them a slot that's suitable in the calendar and take down the number plate and everything else, when we don't really enjoy doing that. And because it's a new process that's been brought in post-COVID, because previously never had to book a tip trip appointment, but that authority has decided that they're going to be sticking with that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, where you say choose your service area carefully, is some of that because you need areas where there's less flexibility in the language that people might use?
Not necessarily, because what the AWS does very well is it records everything that it gets said to it. So if it doesn't understand an utterance to kick off an intent there, then it is recorded as a non-compliant utterance, and it will pass it automatically over to a human being anyway after 2 attempts to understand. So it doesn't just keep repeating and asking 20 times what it is that you need. After 2, that's it, it's failed. It hands over to a human being, which is part of good customer experience. You can see a recording of all failed utterances within your Lex dashboard. And when you do so, you can, by one button click, add it to an intent. When I say pick your service area carefully, really just pick the service area where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. Because you have got an investment, not necessarily huge monetary investment, because everything I've showed you is relatively cheap. But you have got a time investment within it, and there is a significant element of you need to put in the time to understand what it can do, what it can't do, and understand the mathematics of breaking down information. Because you can have the bot collect almost any information that you want, but it's just how are you going to do it mathematically? And the postcode being a classic example of that. We can't give it a regular expression to understand 14 million utterances because it would be too long and it would delay the bot. But actually breaking it down into a prefix and suffix, and then giving the language to the citizen of what's the first part of your postcode, second part of your postcode, works perfectly fine.
Okay, thanks.
Can see a question from Maurice there. Postcode lookup queries the LLPG. That is something that you can do within Lex. There's Lambda functions, and this is runs as part of AWS. Now, Lambda functions are normally limited to one function, so that could be raise a case, get someone's name, things like that. However, what Amazon have added in is Lambda steps. This is a new thing that they have added just over a month ago. What steps allows you to do is run multiple Lambda functions in a chain, step by step, to go and query LLPG. And you would be able to pull back that unique property reference number and pass that over as part of your case instead. So yes, you could do. It's not something I've managed to fully build out yet. I've only started playing with it because I have a normal day job to do, and I get to play about with it. In terms of Juliet's question, nuisance cases, yes, so Lex does have some stuff built in there to prevent anti-spamming, along the lines of number recognition and IP recognition, so it can restrict based upon those to go, right, actually, we're not going to raise a case, we're not going to respond to you, which actually it's doing to me at the moment on Facebook. It refuses to respond to me because it thinks I'm a pain in the bum.
Greg, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, well, it was touched in Mike's question slightly as well. You mentioned dialects, Dave, on the bot, but coming from Northumberland, which is a diverse county which stretches from Tyneside right up to the Scottish borders, how much variation in dialect would it handle? I know you've got a slightly littling Scottish accent, so we have customers from Berwick, which, similar to you, as I say, with a dialect right down to Tyneside, which is more or less pure Geordie.
Yeah. That's actually part of the testing that we've carried out. The authority that's going to be deploying it for tip trip appointments, they have a large migrant population, Eastern European, typically agriculture working. So within that county, they can sometimes have accents that are quite difficult to understand. It has been tested against those, and it still performs and it still understands. Thankfully, the more that you speak to it, the better it gets. So not found any major issues with accent or dialect as of yet. Of course, if it is incredibly strong and You couldn't even make out the words from it. I'm probably thinking of my mother here, who's from Greenock, but it may have difficulty, but I've not come across any yet. In terms of natural language processing, Amazon, it's one of the reasons we chose Amazon. Their natural language processing ability is far beyond any other provider at this moment in time.
Can you change the dialect of the response, i.e. it tends to be quite an annoying American accent? I don't think our customers would really like that.
You can change it.
Good.
Yeah, you can change it.
Can we respond dialect, or would it just be a Queen's English response?
You're breaking up a bit, Greg.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Ask that question again.
Can you have a response in a local dialect, or would it have to be Queen's English?
I'd imagine it would have to be Queen's English. I've not actually come across being able to add in a local dialect. There's a range of output voices that you can choose, quite a lot of choice. I've not listened to all of them. I'm more than happy to take that away and come back to you, though, Greg, because I honestly don't know. Is the honest truth. I mean, Maurice has got a question there about does it respond in other languages such as Welsh? Yes, it does. Yeah, it does. It can handle foreign languages. You need to define what you want your AWS bot to respond to and which languages you want it defined as. So I've got mine defined as English only, but to add language packs there, you can simply just click a button, pick your language pack and add it in. And thankfully, Amazon's done all of that work already on natural language processing on I think around 40 languages they've got in there so far.
Yeah, thank you.
Dave, can I ask a question about that? We did a bit of attempting a skills development for Echo using Welsh and ran into some issues with it. I wonder if there's an element behind the scenes of machine learning to improve the quality of the speech recognition in, should we say, the minority language, the less frequently used languages. I know that Hector Minto from Microsoft, who leads on kind of accessibility stuff for them, is always at pains to point out that the more you use this stuff, the better it gets. So please don't go giving up on it all. And I wonder if the same applies in this domain. And also, just if you could expand a bit without getting us down rabbit holes on stuff that's too techy, about your choice of kind of Lex and AWS versus kind of Google Home and GCP, or either of those front ends on Azure or whatever. You did mention a bit around 365 integration stuff, and I just wanted to get a little bit into your decision to go down the Amazon platform route. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, sure. So yes, to reiterate that point, that the more you use it, the better it gets. And that's part of deep learning, ultimately. So it is a case of sticking with it. What you can do to speed things up, if you know of other authorities that are using it, you can share data very, very quickly and easily through AWS, and you can share the learning. Now, the learning that it's carried out is depersonalized, so you can't tell who it was, but it's kept as machine learning. You can share that and share that fairly easily to improve the response. I strongly believe that artificial intelligence requires a collaborative effort from multiple authorities working together and going, right, we're going to share what we have learned. For the image recognition piece, Swindon kindly gave me access to all the learning that their bot had done around image recognition. It had done over 10,000 hours of image recognition learning. They gave me access to that, so I didn't have to replicate it. And that's really important, that sharing and working collaboratively and working together. The reason for AWS is several parts to it. At Jadu, we primarily host our systems on AWS, so we believe in their infrastructure and the ability to scale, which is very important. The other part of that is when we looked at it and the ability to adapt it, change it, and get it to respond in a natural language processing, we felt that Amazon was better than Google. One of the reasons for that is Google is quite closed down in terms of being able to create intents and get it to understand and how to respond. However, what I would say, if you wanted to use image recognition, Google was better than Amazon. That's undisputed. Their neural net is far, far better. Their TensorFlow is far, far better. So to understand, what I would say is it depends upon your use of AI. If it's to speak to your customers, respond, raise cases, or provide information, I believe Amazon is better. If it is to take data, understand the context of that data, and make a decision upon the data that it's got, Google is far better. And that's just the honest truth of it. It's different platforms for different capabilities and doing different things.
Thanks, Dave. Just to expand on that a little bit, I noticed you didn't go down the Azure route at all. Is that because it's not there on either front, or is it? My impression is Microsoft are kind of insurgent in all these markets and catching up very rapidly, as in RPA, for example, through acquisition, if nothing else. But
yeah, Amazon, Azure, the Power Automate RPA and unattended RPA, I'm fully bought into, and it's something that I work with on a daily basis as I'm trying to figure out how to use it as a solution to take away the mundane tasks. On artificial intelligence, I'm quite sure that Microsoft will get there at the moment, will get there. But they're quite far behind Amazon and Google at the moment in terms of artificial intelligence. Frankly, they're years behind in development. And yes, they are acquiring and going through an acquisition of artificial intelligence routes. I'm quite sure that they will catch up because it's Microsoft. They're ginormous, they're huge. There's no way that they won't. But I don't see them at the moment being able to deliver the kind of level of service that we would expect to see from AWS.
Okay, thanks, Paul.